Okay, welcome everybody to, this is my final one of the week, final workshop, and it's nice to see you've got this is the best attendance out of all of the year groups, so well done year two. I'm going to talk through, some of it will be a bit of a repeat, a reminder about what we do at Westcott, and then some of the new things that come into play now your child is in year two. And then there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions if you have any. So I don't need to tell you how important reading is, but I do like to mention it because it is one of the most important things your child is going to learn. And they have been learning how to read ever since they've started at Westcott. And now they're in year two, they should have some real skills and a toolkit in order to support them with their reading. And that's really going to help them when they move on to West End and for the future as well. And it's really important, particularly now in year two, when the books start getting, there's more word content, they start to get a bit harder, they might even go into chapter books depending on the stage of your child, that we keep that enjoyment level up, because that again is going to really help them as they go into juniors and then even into secondary and beyond. There's two parts to reading. There's the understanding and there's the phonics and word recognition. So when your child first started at Westcott in foundation stage year one, the focus was on phonics and word recognition, because we realised that's a really key skill to enable your child to start reading. So we don't forget about that. That's still really important. And likewise, in the early years, we haven't forgot about the understanding, because that's really important. But the focus does shift a bit in year two to think more about the understanding and their understanding of what they're reading and being able to answer questions. And the reason for that is so that as the books get more complex, it becomes you're more able to do that with the text types, but we're building them up, dare I say, ready for their year six SATs, where their comprehension skills will really come into play for their reading papers. So how do we teach reading Westcott? You're now the expert parents in the school. You've been here, this is your third year for most of you if you're not new to the school. So you know all this, but I'm just going to remind you, because reading stays the same in the sense of how often we do it and what the sessions look like. So we have 3 reading practice sessions a week, a Monday, Tuesday and Thursday currently. And they're timetabled, protected sessions. They happen every week, unless it's the final week and it's Christmas week or that sort of thing. The children are grouped into small groups based on the assessments that we've done on their reading. And they are led, each group, by a teacher or a teaching assistant. And everyone's had training with the Little Wonder or Letters and Sounds books that we use. I'll talk a little bit, I'll come on to the books, because some of them won't necessarily continue reading the Little Wonder ones once they finish the programme. They're taught in small groups, and during that session there's a real structure to those sessions, where we do read one is all about word reading, decoding, and we go over new vocabulary, which as the books develop that comes more into play as well, and it's really important to broaden their vocabulary. That helps not only with their reading but their writing and general knowledge. The second session is all about prosody, which is your expression when you're reading, and that's to help the children with the understanding as well, to help keep them engaged with the text. And then the third read is all comprehension. So that is the same whether they're in reception or year two. I think in year two it does become easier because the books have more content in them. You probably find that home when you're reading with your child. So like I say, 3 times with an adult. They're all specifically selected for the children, and then they bring that book home to read with you on a Thursday. We like it back on a Monday, and it's just to celebrate their reading with them. They should be able to read it. If they're struggling, then please let us know via the either speaking to the class teacher or through their reading record. But they've read it 3 times in school. They should understand the vocabulary. They should have tackled those tricky words. They'll have lots of opportunities for us as adults to tune into what they're reading to check that they're happy with it. It should be enjoyable. And they'll bring home a real mix of books from fiction to non-fiction. Now, as your child, when they finish the little Wandle scheme or the Phonics scheme, which some of them may be doing now, or it might come later in the year. It depends, because remember, it's matched to their ability. They will start to read other books as well, but we stick with the same structure. And the books, we have got fluency books as well, because fluency becomes a real focus to really help them again with their reading ability. So that's just to let you know about the books. In addition to their reading practice book, but they've read in school 3 times and then comes home to you, we have sharing books, we call them. So the sharing book is the home readers that have a clear label on them saying home reader. They are colour banded, so that loosely matches to their reading ability, but there might be a few odd words in there or some sounds that they might still find tricky that you might, and we want you to support with them and help them. There might be some vocabulary that's new to them that they don't understand. They might just need you to explain what that is. So they're the home reader books. If you feel like they're becoming too easy or they're too hard, then again, please just communicate with us. And then when they finish the colour banded ones, we've got reading challenge books, and they're like little small chapter books that the children can choose. Now, the good thing with the home readers is the children get a choice. So they get to choose what they want to read, which is really important for enjoyment. They don't get to choose their reading practice, but we choose that. So we need to give them the opportunities to have a choice as well in their reading. So it is their choice within a selection of books. And the other book they get to choose is their library book. So as you know, we've got quite a wealth of fiction, non-fiction books and take-home packs now with little resources in. And they pick all sorts of things, but again, that's something to share with them. So they might be able to read some of it, you might read some of it, it depends on the book, or you might just be reading it to them, and that's absolutely fine too. You might not even read the whole book, you might only read part of it because you might have been busy that week. So that just explains the books, but I hope that that's nothing new to you and that you already know that. So how often should I read? It's the same message. I've given this message to everybody. We'd love you to read 7 days a week, every day. But we're realistic in that the children might be doing clubs, they might have been away for the weekend. So we ask at least a minimum of 3 times a week. If 1 week you can read 5 times a week, fantastic. Do it. But if we say at least at a minimum 3 times a week, because the children with their reading, they do need to practice and repeat and do it regularly for them to become fluent, which is the ultimate aim in their reading. Also, if you want to continue to read bedtime stories, or you've gone to the library and you're reading, all of that is still fantastic. Please continue. I know with my youngest son, I must have read the Jolly Postman, the Christmas version and the normal version, and he still gets it out. It's quite nice now because he can read it to me, but over and over again, and that is brilliant. That is still fantastic. And also other books, they might like joke books or magazines. Again, any reading is good reading. So the home reading diary is really for you to communicate with us. So we can see that the children are reading at home. If they've had any difficulties or anything you want to communicate with us, maybe the home readers can you just check my child, I think this is a bit easy, or can you just remind them to choose the right colour banding? Sometimes they get a bit muddled and they don't check themselves, but that's just for you to communicate with us, and it really helps us to keep an eye on how things are going at home, and it's a good way of communicating. So that's the reading side of things. And then how is phonics and spelling taught? And I say phonics straight spellings because we start off revisiting the phonics at the start of year 2, but then we really move the focus onto spelling, which is still phonics because you still need to know all those sounds, all those phonemes and graphemes, but we're thinking a bit more purposefully about spelling patterns, suffixes, prefixes, past tense, plurals, all those sorts of things. And I'll come on to that in a bit more detail. But we still teach it daily. It's still done whole class. If there's children that are struggling, we take, or children that are new to the school and they've not completed the programme before and we want to do a bit of extra phonics work with them, or they didn't pass the phonics screening, they may come out and have a real bespoke session. But generally, we like to teach the children as a whole class. And we try to make links to their spellings that they're learning across the curriculum and across the day. If there's any children that particularly struggle with a spelling, we might do some keep up with them in the afternoon. They might not need that every day. It might just be one week they're struggling or they've missed a lesson and we want to catch up with them. That's quite fluid and really personalised on a daily basis. So spelling. So we still follow Little Wandle letters and sounds for spelling. They have a spelling programme. And the reason that's really good is because all the resources and all the terminology that we use matches what they're familiar with. And young children love familiarity. They love routine. We don't like to bring in too many new things with them because we want to really focus on the learning. So like I say, just like phonics was, it's taught daily, up to 30 minutes, no longer than that. And it's about spelling patterns and rules. So I'm not going to read all through this, but I will share this PowerPoint. It'll be on the website, but I'm going to try and link it to the newsletter as well. But it's just breaks down how the spelling works with Little Wandle. So we start the year with a phase 5 review there. So that's the sounds your children were learning at the end of year 1, where they're looking at alternatives for all the vowel digraphs. So that's really good to do a review of those because they're really important. Then the second half of the autumn term is called Bridge to Spelling, and I'll show you a bit more detail about that. And then after that, we really get into the spelling programme, and that goes with them till the end of the year. And then that really sets them up really for the work that they then do at West End, where they use a spelling programme there. It follows a similar structure to Little Wandle. Again, the resourcing and everything and the materials that we use are very similar, and we do regular assessments just like we would with the phonics. So this just breaks down the different areas. So when we're doing our phase 5 review, which your children are doing now, this is what we're covering. And again, you'll have the details of this so you can see the things that we're going over and the tricky words as well that we're still building with the children. The Bridge to Spelling, this is how it works. So it breaks it down into each week has a different theme, and you can see like what do I need to know to think about spelling. So it's teaching them the techniques with spelling, and then it goes on to about suffixes, ing, ed, for example. And then you can see spring 1 and 2 actual focuses, and then the prickly spellings are ones that have something tricky in them, so they call it prickly spelling. So for example, 1 starts with a w, so that's not, it doesn't start with the o that they would expect, so that's why it's called a prickly. But we teach the children that, and then you see there's homophones as well that we go over with the children each week as well. So that's spring 1 and 2, and then the summer term would look like this. And they manage over the course of that, they cover all of the national curriculum requirements for spelling. In terms of end of year expectations, so this is the writing expectations, and I've just in a green box put what the spelling expectation is within that. So you've got all the grammar and punctuation and the sentence writing, but I've highlighted the spelling so you can see what they need to do to get the expected standard. So they need to segment spoken words into phonemes, which is the sounds you can hear, and represent these by graphemes. And graphemes are the letters that you represent those phonemes. Spelling many of these words correctly and making phonically plausible attempts at others. So that's expected, and to spell many of the common exception words, which I'll show you. And then to get to that greater depth level, we're spelling most common exception words, and we're adding suffixes to spell most words correctly in their writing, and they give you some examples there. So you can see how what it builds up to. Our aim is all the children getting to expected. That's what we want, because if they're at the expected level, they're well on their way to be able to access the year 3 curriculum. So we really focus on getting as many children to that expected standard as possible. That's our aim. And then those that are working above, obviously we stretch them to get to that greater depth, but it's a far fewer number, the greater depth. These are the common exception words for year 2. So you can see they're just common words that come up in the children's writing that will be really useful for them to know. So we practice these with the children as well. And they're ones that may not have the usual spelling rules. So they just need to learn them. And that is just practice, 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 and repeating and practice. If your child, I mentioned this, if your child's still working on phonics, we're not going to move them on to all of this spelling until we get that secure, because it just wouldn't help them. So like I say, we might pull them out within those spelling phonics sessions and do some really personalised work with them, or they might be doing additional keep up in the afternoon. So they'll still do the spellings, but they'll do keep up for those areas as well, because it's really important that they don't have any gaps in their learning, because then that'll impact their reading and their writing, and we don't want to do that. So thank you. And are there any questions? I realise I've rattled through that pace. There is lots of information on the Little Wandle Letters and Sounds website, and the on our website there's lots of information. I'm going to add, they've added some documents actually that I want to add on the website, so I'm going to develop the spelling part of it for you. So I'll keep you posted and I'll add bits as they come up. I've just seen a question in the chat. Can we get a Word document of the common exceptions where they need? Yeah, it is on the website, but yeah, if you want a copy of it, that's absolutely fine. I can do that. Any other questions? If you don't want to ask now and you'd rather ask privately, then that's absolutely fine. You can just email in to admin and I can get back to you. Or if you'd rather speak to me on the gate, or you leave the meeting, you suddenly think of a question, that's absolutely fine as well. Or something comes up later on in the year, then you can ask me then as well. There's another question. Will there be a spelling test like the phonics check last year? No, there's no spelling test, and we don't. The next one they'll have is year 6, so it's part of their year 6 SATs. So we don't do spelling tests each week. We don't feel like they have the impact. The children will learn them for the test, and then they don't apply them to their writing. So what we do is just do that regular daily practice. We would correct things in their writing and help them and give them feedback. I know when they go to West End, they have it's called spelling. Oh, I should know because my son's doing it each week. They have a lovely little spellings program that they do at home, and they have tests on there. But again, they don't test them in school, but you can do practice and tests, and it breaks down the words and chunks them up, which is really nice. Spelling frame, I think it's called. So spelling continues to be important, and it's a skill we teach the children throughout their journey, so they're fully prepared for it when they get to that year 6 point, which you may feel like it's a long time away, but I mean, it comes around really quickly. The years go really quickly. Has anybody else got any questions? So I've got another one. Last, if they're still below expected by the end of year, is it transitioned over onto year 3 to support them? Yeah, absolutely. So if we still have children who are still working within the phonics stages, or we transfer that all onto year 3, we do a lot of handover with the year 3, and they would then continue to do to bridge those gaps if they need it. But yeah, we make sure that we communicate that really effectively with the year 3 teachers. Anybody got anything else? It's horrible sitting here in silence. I'll stop sharing my screen. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Like I say, if you think of anything or you want to ask any questions outside of the meeting, then please do. And thank you for joining me. And I'll make sure though that all gets uploaded to the website, and I'll put reminders on the newsletter as well with information as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording now.
Thank you. Cheers.